There we go. How's everybody doing? This is Freeman Sullivan on YouTube, broadcasting Stop the Sweeps here at Oakland City Hall. This is an event that was co-organized with the Western Regional Advocacy Project, who also sponsors. So, there we go. House keys, not handcuffs. So, we got a nice little crowd. This is a co-organized also by the village from the Omni. Also, this is also people involved from the tough sheds that the City of Oakland is setting up and forcing homeless people to occupy against their, wishes and everything like that. So that's why we're here, and we should have some speakers here any minute. Right, Jake? Glad to see you're here. Glad you're here. Where's everybody else at? Oh. So there's JP. So we're just waiting for things to get started here. And this is your live streamer, Freeman Sullivan. They added some features here to the YouTube program, which makes it more helpful. Yeah, there he is. There's Stacy. And if he's the only other one from our encampment, that's not good. Everybody else kind of ran off, it looks like. Oh, I can't go to a press conference. Well, there's going to be some castigation tonight, boy. Why weren't you here? How come you can't show up? We really don't ask for that much of a commitment.
Do you really expect anything to really happen?
Yeah. Yeah, I do expect something really to happen. And if it doesn't happen, we're gonna be thinking a lot about asking people to, maybe you ought to rethink your priorities here and what you're going to be doing here in the near future.
Most of the people are in the slightest.
Doesn't matter. Right. I'm going to come to the meeting this Sunday. Just add that to the rule book.
All right. Well, enjoy yourself.
I will. Not too lazy to get on BART. It's only 3 blocks away. No, I'm not. Dude, I'm not going to be organizing with a bunch of people that are not committed. They just want to, if they just want to hang out at the, at the encampment, well, that ain't going to happen anymore. Because I can put up with a lot of shit, but that's one thing I don't put up with, is that we're struggling for our political, we're struggling for our political rights, and we got people sitting in camp that are not participating? No. Okay? You don't think I can't become a prick and get everybody out of that camp? And get some new people? Oh.
I guess my only real issue with it is if they were to strike down and object to anything, a move up, getting little houses or anything that needs confrontation.
No.
Because that's the nature of our camp. It's if you want to be non-political.
If you want to be non-political, then get the fuck out of the camp. Okay, that's where I'm at with it. You can't show up at a fucking press conference, well, then you don't need to be a part of our group, right? Dude, we're giving you a place to stay. Not you, but we're providing you with food to eat, clothing to wear, a tent to live in. And if that's not fucking enough, well, then get the fuck out, okay? That's how I feel about it.
What about Harry?
Tough shit.
He needs a place where you shit.
Right. And we got City Hall right here. I got a place where I got to piss. I take piss pills. All right. And I got to pee every hour. So, I thought about that too before I came down here,
And Howard, he was still around.
Well, Howard's sick. Right. But Ben, all the rest of them, right? Like, come on, dudes. I'll even give you BART fare to get down here, you know? Yeah, right. Yeah, he's not doing nothing but lying in his little tent, right? So anyway, for those of you watching, which there is nobody watching, which is just why I quit using YouTube. But glad nobody was watching. You get to see the inner politics of what living in a homeless encampment is. That, you know, we're struggling politically, and we got people that are not really working or doing anything productive. Like, you know, like trying to get people to pick up a piece of garbage is like a major thing.
Will you say the part where you want everyone to be political?
Well, I don't want to live with a bunch of people that are just going to lie around and not take political action. That's not why we started it, right? And like, we actually had to face down the cops on a dozen occasions, at least a dozen occasions, right, at 4:30 in the morning, right? Personally, myself, okay, right, where I had to stand up to the police, you know. So I don't really want to be around a bunch of people that are not willing to take political action, right? Because I risked my freedom, you know, and for these other people just to sit around is a slap in my face, I think. Right. So what happened to all the other fucking people at our camp? What are they, fucking, you know, disabled? They need money or what?
I don't want to hear you crying. Listen.
No, I'm not crying. I'm pissed. I'm going to be mad.
Police accosted Prescott in Tennessee less than an hour ago.
Yeah, so
They told him that as of the Supreme Court ruling, they can no longer make anybody move at all.
okay.
That is the current status that we have out there.
That's good. But I'm not talking about making anybody move. I'm trying to get our comrades to show up here, you know.
Right. You can't make them move. That's for sure.
Well, I can get them out of our camp. Now, maybe I shouldn't. I'm just going to let it go for now, but I'm really disappointed, dude, you know. Can't even come by for a little fucking half an hour protest out of your life. And it's your life that's at stake. See, that is one thing I will get pissed off about. At any rate, we should be pissed off at the powers that be, because the powers that be don't really seem to be doing anything positive. Basically, they set you up in a concentration camp and tell you you don't have any rights.
Check. Greetings, everyone. Thank you for coming out today. Can I get all the speakers make their way out here to the front? All the speakers, please make your way to the front.
Hey, what's up, man? How you doing there, sir? I better get up to the front here, else I'm going to have a bunch of people that don't really see people in wheelchairs. Thank you. Anyway, we're up to the front. I guess basically this isn't really a live stream technically. It's just a report for posterity. So I'm kind of disappointed with YouTube's live stream. I'm not really going to sit here and try and build up an audience like I normally do.
Casey, if you can make your way to the front, Casey. Greetings, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out here today. My name is Nita B. I'm with the Village and Feed the People and the Housing and Dignity Project. And we are, it's bittersweet to be out here. It's, very bitter that we are facing such a huge crisis of homelessness here in Oakland and the Bay Area, and actually across the nation and the world, as this UN report has shown. But it's also, the sweet part is that we now have international eyes on this crisis, this worldwide crisis, and a specific, very pointing finger here at the Bay Area between San Francisco and Oakland. We're in a really special moment too, a really powerful moment, one of those movement moments. Not only do we have the UN declaring housing as a human right and declaring that this crisis of homelessness is a global scandal, that governments around the world that should be protecting the rights and providing the rights of housing and basic human needs to their citizens or not, or their residents or not. But we also have the Ninth Circuit Court declaring that it is illegal to criminalize people. It is against the Constitution of the U.S., the Eighth Amendment. It is cruel and unusual punishment to try to criminalize somebody who has nowhere else to go. So we're in this moment right now, a movement moment, where folks who've been asserting their right to live and to exist now have a court system behind them and now have an international, the highest, international body of government behind them too. And if you have not yet read this report, I highly suggest that you read this report. If you go to our Facebook page, The Village in Oakland, hashtag Feed the People, you will find links to that report on our press statements. The report itself is written poetically almost. It's the language is so poignant and poetic. And I think something that's very, very important is that the rapporteur has framed the existence of what she calls informal encampments, what we here in Oakland like to call curbside communities. Their mere existence are the violations of human rights, that people are living in squalor, they are living in pure survival mode, and not being provided their basic need of housing is a human rights violation. But at the same time, it is the assertion of human rights of unhoused folks to provide with as much dignity and resourcefulness as possible their right to exist and live. So it's like a double coin. Where we are being violated, we're also asserting what the government will not do for us. And so I think that is a really important framework that she has placed upon this. And we're going to have speakers here today. Also a little bit background. So this was a 6-year report in the making. The UN rapporteur had traveled countries all over the world, countries in deeper poverty than the United States, countries that have thousands of more unsheltered folks than the United States. And she ended her tour here in the US and was completely appalled by what she saw. I actually want to read something that she had said. Let's see. But she was absolutely appalled by what she saw. Let me see.
I lost your voice.
She called it cruel and unusual punishment, so she was using the same words as what the Ninth Circuit Court is saying. She couldn't believe what struck her was the level of cruelty that the United States had for unsheltered folks, for people in poverty, for people who did not have enough. In other countries that were in deeper poverty than the United States, their governments did not operate on the level of cruelty that the U.S. government operates. And it's very noteworthy that it was Oakland and San Francisco that were explicitly cited as the worst human rights violators of this nature in the entire world.
That's right. Boo! Boo!
And we've already known that. But it means a great deal to know that we now have the international community aware of this, and that all eyes are on this administration, right? And we reject the tough sheds. We reject the tough sheds. We reject putting people in tool sheds.
That's right.
We reject hurting people from one place to another.
That's right.
We reject forcing people to go somewhere where they do not want to be. And another important thing that she had brought up in her, 2 other things. One, that people should not be evicted, they should be upgraded. Candace is going to talk more about that. But that's very important. But not only do the encampments that exist not be criminalized and not be hurted, but they need to be upgraded. And those the entire upgrading process has to include the very residents who live there. You can't have the city government or nonprofits tell people how they need to live and then impose restrictions or impose conditions upon them. The act of self-determination is part of dignity. So it's very important that these communities that are being hurted, the hurting stops, but the upgrading, they need to be part of that. And then in her report, she also outlines dozens of recommendations to governments of what a human rights-based approach of upgrading and dealing with this crisis looks like. And I just want to say, the Village, we have been sabotaged by this administration. We have been criminalized by this administration. But if you actually read our program design, which is a public document that came out in 2016, we are completely in line with every single recommendation that this report lies out. So rather than criminalize us and try to destroy what we do and harm people in the process, the administration should have been listening to us the whole time. And with that, I want to bring up my sister, Candace Elder, who is also with the East Oakland Collective and also a member organization of the Housing and Dignity Project. She is going to talk more about this report and start this off.
Thank you. It is very damning that Oakland and San Francisco are the only two U.S. cities mentioned in this report. This report is, I hate to call it beautiful, but it's beautiful because it backs up what we already know is going on in Oakland, in the Bay Area. That the number of our unhoused folks has risen dramatically, and that they are getting removed on a constant basis, including our Lake Mary curbside communities, which is getting removed tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. and being either forced to go into the tough sheds or elsewhere. The UN Rapporteur calls this treatment, how Oakland, the administration of Oakland is treating our unhoused brothers and sisters as cruel, inhumane, a violation of multiple human rights, a denial of residents, right to live and survive. These informal settlements, also known as establishment as encampments, but known to others as curbside communities, have a right to remain until adequate housing is provided. The UN Rapporteur calls for the end of removals, evictions, until the government on every single level provides adequate housing. The UN also explicitly states that folks living in curbside communities need access to health care, need access to sanitation, need access to water.
Yeah.
Every single one. Right now, the city is currently has sanitation services to 13. And 13 out of what? Numerous curbside communities. The UN report is calling that this needs to be addressed now. And if it's not addressed, then Oakland and San Francisco is in direct human rights violations. And that we need to stop the evictions like yesterday. They need to stop now. People have a right to remain where they are, and people have a right to live in community. Another thing that the report addresses is how these informal settlements are communities. People have built a whole system. They have unified. They are organized. It is not lawless. It is not criminal. So we need to decriminalize how we treat unhoused folks. We need to decriminalize in looking at the laws that further target our unhoused population. And then we need to change the narrative on who is unhoused and how we are dealing and treating and looking at people who are living in the curbside communities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you, Candace. So we're going to have folks who are actually dealing with being in the streets and being unsheltered speak about their experiences of criminalization and of what it means to be living without the city supporting them. As well as, this new face of homelessness. There's a stereotype that was started in the 1980s when Reagan closed down all the mental health situations, and as the crack epidemic hit us all at the same time. And the stereotype is that homeless people are drug addicts and or have severe mental health issues. And that's a stereotype, and in 2018 in Oakland, California, and around this country, that's not the truth anymore. Homeless folks are people who've been displaced by money-driven development policies. Most of us have jobs. I'm homeless, and I have 3 jobs. And I can't afford to be in the city that I've been in for most of my life. My children who've been born and raised here cannot afford to live in a home in a city that they've been born and raised in. And all my kids work too. So the first person I want to bring in up to the mic is Tracy. She's with the village. She's one of our administrators on the ground. She is a badass, but she's going to be talking about how the city actually, its practices of hurting people, which she has been a victim of, as well as the lack of sanitation, how criminalization impacts people, and also her opinion on the Tough Shed experience.
Hi, everyone. Well, the Court of the UN government's duty is to house homelessness, right? That's a violation in the United States of America. And also just being the existence of homelessness is a violation. So therefore, they're just violating all our rights. Okay, first thing I wanted to say was, by them hurting us there, bringing us there, we had no other choice. It's just like, either you go or you go to jail, right? So who wants to go to jail? And at the same time, it's like, how the refugees camps, at least a refugee camp, you have somewhere to look forward to, to America, a better life, right? But here, we're in a camp that is like, where we're going next? Like, when are they going to come and kick us out? And who's going to get raped tomorrow? Saying things like that, it goes through our mind all night, all day. Especially if you're a female, a woman that stays, in one of those encampments or anywhere that it's not like protected by a wall. Just a sheet is not going to do it. So what I'm trying to say is, tough sheds are made for storage. You put things in and you take out when you need it, right? So what is she going to do? Libby, are you going to put us in storage, and then when you need us for election, you take us out and uses us, and then after that, you're going to put us back in storage? Or are you going to find us a home or give us, permanent housing? That's what I'm just saying. I'm just wondering, am I supposed to stand still so I can be in storage or what? But other than that, I'd like to say thanks for everyone, and also no more tough sheds. Give us permanent housing, low income housing, not affordable housing, because we can't afford affordable housing. Thank you.
Yay!
Yeah, and just so folks understand that at the village site that we had at East 12th and 23rd that was offered to us after 8 months of struggling with the city after they bulldozed us the first time, that instead of just giving us the land in good faith, 6 different neighborhoods, 6 different gangs, rival gangs, were herded onto that land. And it's been complete chaos. It functions like a prison because that's the culture that's been, folks are used to when you put rival gangs together. You are never supposed to have rival gangs together. A rival gang member is never going to choose to be the neighbor of another rival gang member. And these folks were forced to do, and they were threatened with arrest. And what we also found out is that since that first hurting happened, over the past few months, the city, the police have been actually picking up individual folks who are not in encampments, throwing the back of OPD squad cars and dropping them off at the village and telling them, if you try to leave, we will arrest you. So, it's just complete criminalization. Libby keeps on saying, her administration keeps on saying that they're not criminalizing people. But if you're using police, that right there, that's a criminal element right there. And if you're threatening people with arrest, you're criminalizing them. And if you're telling people they cannot exist where they're already existing because you don't want them there, that's criminalizing them. So I want to bring up Casey, actually. She is one of the folks who is facing eviction, potential eviction at Lake Merritt tomorrow. She's going to talk about what they've been dealing with over there, as well as what she has seen with her own eyes with the Tough Shed site that has been opened up at the Henry J. Robinson. Keep in mind, the Henry J. Robinson is a building, a facility that for the past 20 years that has been empty. The city has been paying for the water and the electricity in that building. That building has water and electricity right now.
They don't work it.
But they want to put people in the parking lot. Explain that.
Yeah, with porta potties and running water. Hi, my name is Casey Cummings. I'm a 30-year resident of Oakland. I owned a business here for 12 years, and I'm currently homeless, staying at Lake Merritt on the southeast side near the Henry Kaiser, facing eviction tomorrow, with absolutely nowhere to go. And I would like to say that it is appalling, and it is cruel, and it is inhumane the way Oakland is treating the homeless epidemic, which are more people every day showing up looking for a place to camp because of their displacement within somewhere in this area. So systematically, they're going to go around and evict everybody around the circumference of the lake, ostensibly to move them into 20 tough sheds with a capacity of 40 occupants total.
our community, which there's more than 40 people in just the first 2 eviction sites, which I'm the second, part of the second one. I am your neighbor. I've been your neighbor. I'm a taxpayer. I'm a worker. I work. The marginalization of being homeless is shocking. Besides just the stigmatization of it, the difficulties you face, having to go from place to place to place, and face people stealing from you, like your ID, or just fundamental things like clothes or food, and being marginalized by the cops, or picked up and have your assets forfeited because they take them and keep them. For all of the complications of childcare, getting to work, having the money to get to work, showering when you need to, eating when you need to, having a place to store your food, having a clean and safe environment where you can sleep and feel okay and feel rested when you wake up. The noise is very difficult. We get blamed for so many things that we are not responsible for. For example, the blight, the trash, the destruction of the newly reconstructed wetlands surrounding the channel that feeds into Lake Merritt. There was a quote, I think Mr. DeVries said, millions of dollars of damage, and he blamed basically on the homeless, which I see as I'm camping right on the lip of that channel. It's not homeless people that are walking over there. It's people that are coming to here to fish and then going home to their homes. So there's a lot of stigma that is attached to homelessness, which is very unfair, and we are your neighbors. We're part of your community. It's unfair to just expect to be able to relocate us because the rich people get all of the nice toys. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Yay.
Okay, well, I'll just keep talking then. Oh no, here she is. Well, okay. That's tough for me, huh? Okay, well, you know what? I'm going to read a poem that is very short, that my friend, a female Faust, wrote, and it's very applicable, but... Okay, let me read this one. Okay, great. I could be you just as easily. You could be me just as well. We could be through with this misery. We could have been done with this hell. Each one of us already knows how, and even though some of us don't understand, the pretended ignorance shows now. We can see all such traitors are damned. If ever you get like me, beat down and frightened, overwhelmed, overcome by the fear that maybe the world can't be made right in enough time to avert what is so near, then, as if on cue to save you from despondence, at long last, no, not even a bell, remember please our correspondence, so that this won't be a so you'd expect me to tell. Springing eternal confused, we confide in sight, seemingly more likely than far, more into talking of taking a side than they can tell ser from estar. Because those who refuse to be saved have been evil, well, all along. Take a proud satisfaction depraved in choosing senselessly yet to do what is wrong. Anyway, Nino.
Thank you, Casey. I just want to make a point too that pretty much everybody who is speaking today, maybe with the exception of one person, but everyone speaking today is either currently homeless or formerly homeless, which says a lot, right? I want to bring up Khalil. He's also a member of the village and Feed the People, and also an unsheltered brother. And he's going to talk about the new face of homelessness and also how the relation to gentrification to homelessness, how you can't separate the two, that one causes the other. So I'm going to bring up Khalil.
Thank you for your time. I'm an Oakland native. I've been living here for many years with my mom, and one thing I've noticed that the homeless crisis is really reaching a certain level where, I mean, it should dawn on the city to actually do something. I've been on and off, having my place to ending up on the street to, getting on a car and living in it for a while, and then being back on the bridge, and then just slowly getting myself back up again. And the major cause is like that there's no well, there is housing, but it's not affordable. It's not affordable to any of us that work minimum wage, and whether when you're working on minimum wage, it's a struggle to go to work presentable and, you know, maintain the job. That's one of the main causes that causes folks to lose their job and remain homeless. You know, it's excuse me. It was interesting to me when you know, the report came out, just because it's just ridiculous that in the richest city in the state, the richest state in the country, that we have this issue, you know, and they can't seem to have any funds or any money or any representative to actually, you know, support us or help us. We, you know, kind of just had to get up on our feet and come out here and say, you know, that housing is a human right, which it is. And, you know, it should really, you know, it should really be an insight to the city that, you know, just because you don't feel it, just because you're making the money and, you know, you can't relate, doesn't mean it's not happening. You know, like I've been dealing with my mom, having issues and just trying to maintain my family together. And it's, you know, it's a struggle when you can't make enough and you can't find a stable place. You know, I'm trying to have my family together and, you know, just start anew and, you know, try to pick up the pieces. And it's just difficult when the city just makes it more difficult for folks in my situation to do anything. I mean, the only thing that really helps is music, you know, and like you just, you know, you're so angry at you know, at the city, you know, and you're speaking to them, you're telling them, you know, your stories, and they're not doing anything. You know, the only thing that really helped is, you know, this is the community. The fact that we can try, you know, we can rely on each other to help one another. And it's, you know, it should come from the city, but, you know, that's a whole other story. But yeah, you know, it's necessary. You know, we want to help mentally ill folks and you house them. It costs less to house them than to deal with them being on the street. It's safer for them, safer for the community. You know, you actually give them help that they need, and, you know, it's crazy out there. You know, most folks deal with being, you know, getting their stuff stolen, deal with being harmed, threatened, and you know, it shouldn't be like that. You know, we're in America. It's supposedly the richest country in the world, but it doesn't seem to show it. You know, it's just
The richest thieves in the world.
but luckily, this report is going to show or shed some light on the human rights violations that the city's been doing. You know, it's been an ongoing issue, and finally we have some proof to back it up. Especially in San Francisco, and this is only going to get worse because this is going to affect not only the Bay Area, but it will also affect the Valley. I mean, I have some family over there, and they're telling me how the cost of living is starting to rise up there. The homeless issue is starting to reach over there, and, you know, this is only going to keep affecting other cities. So, I mean, we got to stop it here at the source, at the major problem. So we really need to, you know, kick it in gear and actually start doing something. We need to actually we'll go out to the communities, go out to these homeless encampments, and, you know, really see what's going on. Really see from their point of view, not the politicians who do not feel what we feel, you know, and frankly do not listen to what we're telling them. But yeah, thank you for your time. I hope that this report is insightful.
All right.
Thank you, Khalil. I just want to holler, if Pastor Preston is here, can you please come up to the stage? And if Robien is here, can you please come up to the stage?
Preston.
In the meantime, I want to bring forward one of our brothers from Berkeley. They also deal with the housing crisis and the inhumane treatment. And he's going to talk about some of the atrocities and the current struggle happening in Berkeley. Please give it up for Mike Zint from First They Came for the Homeless. Mike Zint.
Hi, how y'all doing? Well, in the last few days, Berkeley has basically exposed itself to be really a fascist location for the homeless.
Yeah.
The DBA and the City Council worked together to limit homeless people to a 3-foot by 3-foot square that's 12 feet tall. Now, you guys look around, you'll see, just as you're sitting here, how much room you really have. You know, a homeless person has to carry everything they own on their back. It's just not going to work. So if you're poor, you're reduced to, you know, just a few cubic feet to exist in. And they use this to protect the money coming into town at the Bark Plaza. And homeless people's gear is not even allowed on Bark Plaza now. So that's what's going on in Berkeley. In Berkeley, when you have a homeless camp that's drug and alcohol free full of seniors, and a problem shows up, the police show up and say, you have to let them in. We're not going to protect you. So they're demonstrating that there's no equal protection under the law. Threats are being made, and they still don't do anything. So the rights of homeless people are still less than the average right should be. In Berkeley, they stole a lot of our gear. So we filed a lawsuit. Last month, we achieved class action status on the lawsuit. Now, it is only limited to the homeless of Berkeley, but it's a stepping stone towards every other city in the area being able to file suit.
Regional solutions.
And that's what's needed. I have had thousands of dollars of gear stolen from me as a homeless man. When you're a homeless man, you can't replace it. I've had my medicine stolen, my ID stolen, my birth certificate stolen, my blankets, my clothing, everything. What did I get out of it? I got sent to the hospital. What did the city get out of it? They got a pat on the back from the DBA saying, good job, you got rid of them. But they didn't. Right now, First Day Camp for the Homeless is running multiple homeless camps. We have began assembling a new coalition with Stephen DiCaprio from Meiklejohn, the Great Panthers, a whole bunch of groups that get involved. Me is involved. We need everybody to come together and start talking together. Homelessness is not limited to Oakland, San Francisco, Berkeley. It is a national problem, and it's only going to get worse.
So
we need to start going together in force, saying this is just not going to continue. Put the housing in that we need. Come up with real plans. Stop chasing. Stop forcing the homeless into situations that they don't want to be in. Don't put two strangers in a tiny fucking poison shed.
Right, with
and
creosote.
say, that's what you get, or jail is what you get. You know, when they raid tomorrow, or when they try to raid tomorrow, be there and stop them.
Yeah, actually,
You know, you guys have the power. They don't. But they want you to think they have the power. So when these guys are getting raided tomorrow, come on out. When the cops show up at his camp, stand with this man, because he's standing for all of us. And it takes leaders, and there's not enough leaders out here. I'd like him to introduce himself to all of you so that you know who this guy is and where the camp is.
Hello, folks. For you that don't know me, my name is Nino Parker. I've been out here advocating hard for homelessness for at least a year straight. I've been out living at Lake Mare for over 5 years. Like Mike says here, it's time for us to take a stand. There's a lot of grandpas and grandmas I see out here. I'm so tired of it. There's places that you probably don't know about where we have our breakfast and our gatherings. And when you go to those places, when you see 10, 15 people that are like over 50 years old, you're wondering what the city's doing to help our elderly. It's very important that in our, once we experience life and got all that wisdom, and with that in the older years, we can utilize that in some way and not be in a tent somewhere or some campsite on the street. Another issue is when folks are out there in the street like that, how do their grandkids visit them? Where's the family life? It's taken away. We talk about these programs that are housing like the Henry Robinson and the Tough Shed program. Can your kids visit you there? I have an 11-year-old. If I was in the Tough Shed program, can my 11-year-old come and visit me there? Probably not. Because some of the actions and things that go in some of these Tough Shed programs are the same actions and things that were going on before they went in. Remember that, folks. They're not safer in my area. I'm up on a place called Camp 1. Camp 1 is up on the land at 2nd and 12th. There's about 6 of us that have been up there. We've had a safe encampment since the 4th of July. That's the day we took it. There is no other thing like a campsite like it in Oakland. Camp 1 is the only safe campsite where folks can come and sit, have a good evening, a fire and some food, and just sit around living the best that we can out here in the situation that we're in. Homelessness is not a business, folks. All you folks that are out there building tough sheds and lining up nonprofits for this, that, and the other. Homelessness is a condition that people fall into, and a lot of people fall into it here in Oakland because, as you know, Oakland at one time was 40% Black, and now the numbers are way down. And because of that, the people that are becoming homeless, the former homeowners, are all Black. If you look around, 75% of the people out here homeless are probably Black people. It's an issue we need to look at. One of the problems I had with the UN report is this. They went around and they talked to a lot of different people and a lot of advocacy people, but did they come and talk to any Black man? They know I existed out here. We need to come and get everyone's perspective because some of our perspectives are different. There's a lot of different types of homeless politics I'm finding out. Like I said, I'm new to the game here in Oakland, but nevertheless, it's very important that we realize there's Black leadership out here too, because the people that are suffering, the consequences are Black people. All right. So let's
thank you.
Get out here and make sure that when you're up in East Oakland and you see all these folks out here, grandmas and grandpas under these bridges and under these freeways, you guys really need to look at that. Think about this. When you're all at Christmas, everybody, and I'm not talking to you folks, I'm talking to everybody. When you're this Christmas, when you're at home with grandpa and grandma, and all the grandkids are there, think about the people that can't have that simple luxury of having their grandkids that's with them on Christmas. Let's get the seniors' house here, folks. There's a lot of homeless issues, a lot of different messages. Let's get the grandpas and grandmas off the street. Let's get some kind of housing. Let's get a guarantee from the city. Whatever, mayoral, city council, let's get a guarantee right now, tomorrow, and covered by the executive. But tomorrow we want a guarantee. When you come and talk to us about moving, bring us a guarantee that we can get started on something. Because they keep telling me, back in 2016, they told me 2018. And now it's 2018, they're telling me 2020. And 2020, they'll tell me it's 2024. No, we can't keep waiting. Let's do it now.
Yes, you can. One more time.
One more time. It's if you're at the west end of Lake Merritt, Camp 1 is on 2nd and 12th. If you want to see things out, that large white building, there's a huge lot with about 6 tents up there. You'll probably see the people up there. There should be some folks there, hopefully, because remember, this isn't for new folks, and this ain't for you. This is for grandma and grandpa.
All right.
Happy birthday, Mike!
So those of us who've been dealing and fighting the fight against displacement and gentrification know that plot as the East 12th parcel. It is a contested parcel because the city was actually going to try to build condos there, and it was against their own laws to build condos there. So the condos never went up because of the power of the people, and that's just a testament to the power of the people. I want to bring up again, if Pastor Preston is in the house or Babien, please come forward. And in the meantime, I want to bring up Paul Bowen. He is with the Western Regional Advocacy Project that has been doing amazing work here around the western part of the U.S. He's also with the Coalition on Homelessness in San Francisco. It was through his work that the UN even came to the Bay Area in the first place. So we owe it to this brother for putting us on the spotlight. And I just want to bring him up. Paul Bowen.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. So I wanted to give a shout out and a show of solidarity from people in Skid Row at Los Angeles Community Action Network, Denver Homeless Out Loud, Right to Survive, and Sisters of the Road and Street Roots up in Portland, Oregon. We're in Sacramento. We're in Seattle. We're in New York. We're in Chicago. We are building a base of support for putting the context in its appropriate place. The discrimination, the racism, the classism. Homelessness is a manifestation of that shit. Homelessness isn't a unique, separate entity. Homeless people, like we were called, we're not separate entities. We're not separate diseases. We're not separate people. We're poor people with no fucking place to live. and through the Poor People's Campaign and through other organizations that are really trying to connect this into a human rights context. And that's why Philip Alston, the first rapporteur to come around, and then Leilani from the Housing Rapporteur, who also did go to LA and did go to Skid Row and talk to homeless people in Skid Row, you know, really putting this into the context that's appropriate for what it is that we're dealing with. We have a neoliberal government. Face it, since we colonized this place, we have been operating under a neoliberal context. That government is here to serve the wealthy, to make money for corporations. They say we don't have money for housing. $144 billion last year went to subsidize the housing of homeowners. 34 billion went to subsidize the housing of poor people. It's the 34 billion that we call charity, that we screen immigration status, that we look at felony arrest records. With a homeowner, we don't look at nothing except, do you merit, do you qualify for a subsidy? There is no limit, there is no cap. Everybody, every homeowner that qualifies gets it. Not every poor person that qualifies gets it. That's discrimination. That's public policy discriminating based on the economics of the situation. The 140 billion, that goes to mortgage companies, that goes to real estate interests, that goes to the construction industry for ghost fucking condos and shit. The 34 billion goes to house poor people, and it's that we say we can't afford. We need to call that for what it is. That is racist, that is classist, and that's not going to stop because of a press conference or because of a report or because of some liberal mayor. That's going to stop when we have our revolution, and that's what we should be working towards. Thank you all very much.
All right, folks, I'm going to have to stop because
Thank you, Paul.
I've got some
Again,
air
is
hand
Pastor
grabs.
Preston here? Or Robian?
I'm going to call it.
Since Pastor Preston is not here and he's the last of our residents to speak,